Good morning, and thank you everyone for joining us for Be Growth Driven episode 3. It's going quick before we know it. We have today with us, I'm going to go ahead and maybe rearrange these. We have today with us Gina Danner. Let me rearrange this a little bit better. Gina Danner and Jessica.
I'm getting busy here, man.
I know, right? We'll keep it simple there. So we have today with us Gina Danner and Jessica Klieman from NextPage. And the topic is a very important one. It's one of mentoring because let's face it, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, we all have certain mentors that we pick throughout life. And sometimes maybe those are good choices, and sometimes they're bad choices. And so we want to talk about that today, how valuable it is to have the good choices of mentoring today. And Gina, tell us a little bit about yourself. Why don't we start with you, and I'm going to bring you into the spotlight a little bit.
So I'm Gina Danner. I am CEO and owner of NextPage, which is a printing and direct mail company and marketing communications firm in Kansas City. We have about 134 employees, and we're located in about 150,000 square feet in the thing that everybody knows us for is we're the printer in the cave. Hence my wall back here.
Right. It's real cave, not a
real
fake
cave. I'm really underground.
Awesome. So how did NextPage get started? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So NextPage was founded by my dad and my older brother Eric in '88, and August 8th of '88, and it was really started as a small printing company, quick printing, and we happened to do direct mail, which was pretty innovative back in those days. And I joined the company in '89, and looking for my place in it, I went down the sales and marketing path and really drove the company towards providing marketing communications, because my thought was, if I can figure out how to help people make money, they're going to keep spending money with me. And that was really the basis of it. So our job isn't to put ink on paper. Our job is to figure out how to help companies make money. That's it.
Pretty simple,
Yep.
Straightforward.
Yep.
So now, when you guys started back in 1988, how many people were there?
Outside of the family members?
Yeah, just
zero.
Okay. And
So, yeah.
and now where are you at?
We're at 134 employees. We were going into 2020 with gangbusters after about a 25% increase in revenue in 2019. And we were looking to do that again in 2020. Of course, I don't know if you've heard there's a pandemic, but so
we're a little bit, but
we've done well through it. We've been able to hold our own and keep people focused, and find those opportunities where they lie. So we're doing good right now.
Awesome, fantastic. And I know just from knowing you too, you guys have done that. You've adapted very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
And with an organization of over 100 employees, that can't be easy.
Well, no, it's not. But running any organization with more than one employee, heck, even just having yourself is hard some days.
Right, for sure.
You just have to keep everybody focused on a long-term goal and a long-term vision.
Right.
So
fantastic. So let's talk about how that's helped you. I mean, let's talk about mentoring, right? How does over the years, what have you found that works, and what have you found that frankly didn't work?
Well, I think, from a mentoring perspective, I was introduced to formalized mentoring programs in 2000, and that was when it was pretty revolutionary and pretty new. And I was selected for a program with the Committee of 200, which was a business women's leadership organization. And they had determined at that point in time that it was likely that there could ever be only 200 women that met the criteria, which were responsible, either led a business that had over $50 million in revenue, or led a corporate division that had over $300 million of revenue. And they were founded in the 80s. And in the 2000s, when I was part of the program, there was well over 300 members at that point in time. But they had a very formalized mentoring program where you had to apply and were selected. And I was matched with a mentor, Cheryl Womack, here in Kansas City, who gave me 4 hours every 2 weeks of her undivided attention. And she grilled me like I was taking a dissertation master's, defending my master's thesis.
Right.
And helped me dig into every part of my business and helped me frame what I ultimately wanted it to be. And what was so cool is she would send me home with 40 to 80 hours worth of homework that I had to do on top of running my business. And she says, Gina, I've mentored all kinds of people through my years. She goes, you're the only one who actually did all the homework. And what I think is important about that is when you have a mentor is free. A mentor is not charging you anything. And the way you pay back that mentor is making them proud of the effort and the work you put in. That's the currency that the mentor receives. The responsibility of the protege is to do the work.
Right.
That's really what it comes down to.
I like that, because there's so many people out there. There's so many programs out there right now where, the mentor, I'm going to mentor you. It's going to cost you $10,000.
No, that's not a mentor. That's a coach or a consultant.
Right.
That's not a mentor. A mentor is free.
Right. I like that, because so many people get confused by that. They're looking for guidance, right?
Well, yeah, and having a coach or being a coach is perfectly acceptable. It's just don't confuse it with being a mentor.
I like it. Very good.
Yeah.
So now enters. I'm going to go ahead and change our view here so we can bring in Jessica here to a little bit more. So how did you two get connected? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, I'm going to let Jessica tell that part of the story.
Okay.
So I'm actually originally from Iowa, and I played college basketball for a year, went to the University of Iowa, and I had that, oh crap moment. What am I going to do with my life? Because they say, go to college, get this good job. They don't tell you, oh, hey, by the way, here's all your debt. And there's not a good job waiting for you. Good luck. Go figure it out. So I knew I always wanted to be in sales, just my competitive nature. I knew that's, if I want to make money, you got to be in sales. So I started Googling printing and marketing companies in Chicago and Kansas City because it was two big cities close to Iowa. And I came across Gina randomly. And it was one of the top companies I found when I Googled printing and marketing in Kansas City. And I read every single page on her website. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. It's a woman-owned business. Looks like she was involved in every organization you could possibly be involved in here when you Google her. She was an athlete herself. I was like, this is it. I got to do something different. I got to stand out. So, because I had already submitted a bunch of resumes online. I looked at my roommate. I said, we're not doing that. We're going to go to Kansas City. I'm going to show up on her doorstep and just tell her why I want to work for her. My roommate was like, okay, let's go. So we drove down here the next morning, I think at 3 a.m. and showed up, went in. I told the receptionist why I was here. I'm looking to talk to Gina. She was like, oh my gosh, are you crazy? I was like, I might be, but I'm so determined to get a job, and I'm not going to be that person that goes back, lives with mom and dad. That just wasn't for me. So the receptionist goes, okay, I'm going to try to get a hold of Gina. Well, turns out she was actually traveling. So the VP of sales came out and he talked to me, and he was like, oh my gosh, I've only been here 3 weeks, but I'll give all your information to Gina and we'll go from there. I can't believe you just drove from Iowa. And I was like, yeah, it's no big deal. I turned around and I drove right back home. And I think it was on a Tuesday, and a couple days went by and it was Friday. And I was like, dang, I'm going to have to go do that again in Chicago somewhere. I hadn't heard anything. I think it was like exactly 5 o'clock on Friday. She called, left me a voicemail, and then sent me an email and said, well, can you come back down next week for an interview? And I said, absolutely. And I think I was here Monday, came down for an interview, and they offered me the job. I accepted the job and packed everything up at my college apartment, took it back to my parents, and whatever I could fit in my car, brought to Kansas City.
Right. So now would you recommend just randomly showing up on a doorstep?
I think I would recommend doing your research and going after what you want. I think that's more what it's about.
Right.
doing whatever it takes to get the job. But do your research. I mean, I read every page on their website. That I was working at a bank at the time in college, and Gina said that she could see that somebody from a bank had looked at every website or every page on the website. So I think she had told one of the sales reps to start calling on that bank, but it was just me while I was at work trying to read everything I could to.
Oh, okay. So now that just says something right there of Gina's nature there, right? So she's very in tune with her business in the fact, and that's a small detail I'm picking up there right there. She's so in tune with her business that she's watching where people are coming from that are visiting her website. And see, and that's the type of organization, right, that's going to be moving forward. And so when you're showing up on the doorstep of somebody, you want to be on the doorstep of an organization that's trying to move forward like that. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So now, Gina, bringing you kind of back into it, what was, for a mentor to want to mentor somebody, what are some of the things that you looked for out of that individual? Because it's not just, her showing up on the doorstep, that shows quite the tenacity.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had that happen before?
Actually, yes. I have hired every person who showed up on my doorstep and differentiated themselves. So the key was their ability to differentiate themselves. So
Okay.
my current chief revenue officer showed up on the doorstep 16, 17 years ago. At that point in time, what was that? Right after shortly after 9/11, we were still in a downward economy. He hand delivered his resume and 24 Krispy Kreme donuts. Okay.
There you go.
So he got it to my assistant at the time, and she's like, "You really brought in donuts? Gina doesn't eat donuts." He's like, "Well, just make sure she knows I brought them in." And of course, had the nice bound resume and everything. Well, he's now has a very successful career as my chief revenue officer and a part owner in the company.
There you go.
I had for the same position that I had advertised. That was actually the first time I'd ever used monster.com, for those of you who are old enough to know what that is.
Yep.
And I had over 300 applications for a marketing coordinator position. How do you sort through 300 applications? I was looking for any way for somebody to stand out, and they just didn't. That was how he did. And for the same job, I had another person show up, hand delivered a bound resume along with all of the writing that she had done associated with clients and marketing. And it was, again, they just didn't go online, just didn't submit a resume. They did their research. They asked for me. They talked to me. They communicated with me and showed themselves to be professionals and better than everybody else.
Would you say, because I know what you're talking about there, when you get like hundreds of resumes, you get hundreds of applicants, right? And they're coming in, and you're just looking for something. Was the approach of those individuals, like Jessica, that showed up on the doorstep, right? Was their attitude one of, "Hey, I'm looking for what's for me," or did they have a different mindset there?
Well, they were looking at what's for them, because they'd already done the research and understood what they wanted in their lives, and were doing what they needed to do to get it.
Right.
And I think, that drive and that effort and that thing that says, I'm going to break the rules in an acceptable manner to win.
Right.
In life, And I think that's what you have to do in sales. That's what you have to do in business. How do I ethically and morally break the rules to get what I want?
That's awesome. Right. Because some of those rules just aren't really, frankly, rules. They're perceived boundaries, right?
Right.
Would it be fair to say, though, too, that the attitude that they took was, I can add value to your company.
Of course.
I can, right?
Of course.
So, because a lot of times what I've encountered in just the hiring process, when you're looking at people, is they're always, the questions are related to solely what's in it for them. And a lot of times people forget that transactional. You mentioned earlier, as far as like mentoring, the best thing you can pay back is putting in the work. Right. And so a lot of times I think that's what some organizations suffer from, is they suffer from people that don't want to put in the work.
Right. Well, I think that's the critical component is putting in the work is how you show your commitment.
Right.
And not just showing up, not putting in the time, putting in the work.
Right.
And there's a difference.
Oh, totally difference.
Total difference.
One thing I wanted to ask you, Gina, and I certainly want to follow this up with Jessica too. So kind of coming from a little bit of the real estate investing background, and there's also some other things that I followed where you mentioned, you're doing the work in order to, pay the mentor back in some way. That's not necessarily transactional, but it's that feeling that someone gets. And you talked about it being more, at least within your business or what you've been involved with, a more formal mentor program. But from some of the other experiences I've had previously, and this is where I'm kind of having a little bit of I don't want to say disconnect, because I'm following you and I'm with you, and I absolutely love what you've been saying so far. But as far as being able to differentiate yourself, from those instances have been bring value. Start with value first. You can differentiate yourself through providing something that is value, rather than just going up to somebody and saying, "Hey, will you be my mentor?" Well, what context is that? And so, if you could kind of parse that out for me. She obviously came on, stepped on your doorstep, differentiated herself, did the research first, and then followed up with the work afterwards. But as far as like bringing value to somebody, in a formal versus an informal manner, what's the best way, do you think, that somebody going into a professional career, should be doing it? Should they go more an informal route to start out with and just differentiate themselves that way with providing value? Or should they actually seek out other mentorship opportunities as they're getting ready to go into the marketplace?
So let's make sure we clarify something. First of all, Jessica applied for a job at my company.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was the first thing. She's an employee here. What was different about Jessica is she asked for guidance. She asked for help. She came prepared to every meeting. She asked for, how would you do it, Gina? I want to learn from you. I'm a raw piece of clay. So give me what you already know, because you've been there, done that, so that I can do more for you. And that's kind of the difference is, and Jessica, we were talking about this the other day. Help me remember, you said something about some of your other people on the sales team.
Yeah, I know that. So to add on to what she said, I think one thing that Gina does a really good job of is painting the bigger picture and showing you the whole vision. I think that's something that's super important. She thinks bigger than I've ever seen anybody think, which is amazing. So it's about just asking for help. The worst she can say is, "Hey, no, I don't have time," or "Let's set up time later." But I think so many people are afraid to ask, but just ask. But you also have to put in the time. It's not Gina's job to track me down. It's my job to schedule time with her, to put in the work, to show up and be prepared. And I know some of my coworkers, no matter the age, they will question what Gina says, and she's competitive. She loves a good fight, but I just know when someone gets a bigger paycheck than me that I'm going to follow and do what they say, because I want to get on the path that they're on. And it hasn't led me wrong yet. So, that's one thing I like to do.
Yeah, I love that. So I guess from both of your perspective, I'll go back to you, Jessica. Like, where's that line between, I don't want to say just being employed, because there are fantastic employees that are out there that are, crushing their goals, doing all those things. But what separates that once, you have the employment, what separates you, and by action, by deed, by not necessarily by title, but how do you step into that mentor role or that mentoree role, receiving that mentorship? You've kind of alluded to it, I feel like, already, but where, I guess maybe not what is the line, but how do you manage that line between, stepping into the mentorship role? And is there anything to really manage?
I guess for me, it was more just asking her for help or asking for time on her calendar. Yes, she's very busy, But if you schedule time with her, she's going to be there no matter what. I mean, whether it's she's got to call in, Zoom. I mean, she is always there. She's at the office early every single day. I think so many people are afraid to ask. But in sales, as you know, you can't be afraid to ask for what you want. Right. So I think you just have to go ask. I mean, even Joel, I mean, we've had several conversations and you've spent a lot of time with me on the phone, just teaching me certain things. So I think it's just asking for that time and being respectful of their time. But like Gina said, I mean, show up, do the work, but they get rewarded when we win. But you just got to keep showing up and ask for time, but also be respectful of their time as well.
Yeah, I think she mentioned having that moldable clay, and I know that maybe in the professional sense, this isn't always the right way to say it, but coming from a little bit of a military background, we always talked about, I might be a supervisor and I have subordinates. It's not that I mean that I'm physically subordinating anybody, but it's just the nature of those roles. And so to me, it seems, and certainly where I've jumped into the role here under Joel, is maybe the initiation is actually from our end, working for somebody. You know what? The step into the mentorship role is a step towards submission and being moldable. And what's that mindset? What's that action to go, hey, I'm here to be coachable? And
I think that definitely lies on our shoulders. I mean, she's so busy and has so much going on. She's running a company and she keeps growing it every year. I mean, it's not her job to come find me. It's my job to schedule time on her calendar and set time apart with her. So I think that's another thing is I think sometimes, our generation, they expect a coach or a mentor to schedule time with them and be there for them, but it's completely the other way around. It's our job to schedule time with them because they have 100 other things they could be doing. They're happy to set time aside. And I know that Gina's very passionate about mentoring, but it's my job to put time on her calendar and to let her know when I need help because she has so much going on throughout the day. So I think it definitely lies on the mentee more so to schedule that time. Just for me, just a light bulb went off. I really think that is a really golden nugget out of that exchange there. It really is the mentee submitting themselves to be coachable and allowing themselves to be coached and asking the right questions and making the time and respecting that time too. I think that's perfect, Jessica. Absolutely.
I think Gina, well, that goes in line with what Gina talked about earlier. It's taking full advantage of doing the homework, right? Mm-hmm. She talked about her mentor as far as, she's like, the comment was, you're the only one that did all the homework.
Yep.
Right. And how has that paid off? I mean, obviously we know it's paid off well, but how has that paid off in so many ways beyond just business? What would you say?
Well, I think part of the challenge is for a lot of people when they've gotten to a certain point in business and they've made more money than they've made previously, kind of that first time you get that 6-figure W-2 for a lot of small business owners. And remember, it was a small business when I started. But the thing was, you kind of think, oh, I'm a business owner and I'm somebody special. Well, it's a reminder that, well, you're not that special. That there are people that are 1,000 times stronger, better than you are, that I don't ever want to be, or I don't like being the smartest one at the table. I want to be the hardest working one at the table. Mm. And I'm blessed because I am pretty smart, but I think the thing that's more important to me is I will get in and do the work that needs to be done to win. And there's been times in at NextPage and beyond that I've worked, 12 and 16-hour days to try to win. And it's just a reminder that we don't know everything. And at 50 something, I still need to pull an all-nighter every once in a while because that's what it takes to win.
Right. I love it.
So
let me get my windows organized there.
I was gonna say, you're making me dizzy, dude.
I apologize for that.
Well, I did want to ask something just still in the vein of just another thought that came off just from my conversation quickly with Jessica there. But, to you, Gina, can every owner be a mentor? And I guess also, should they be a mentor? Because I still feel that there might be somewhat of a shift of an owner that is willing to actually be that mentor and then developing themselves in a way to actually do that. You asked me before I even came on, hey, John, what's your big vision?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of think that if maybe an owner isn't asking that question of the people that work for them, I don't know whether they could be a good mentor for that person or not, right?
Well, not everybody is capable of being vulnerable and nurturing the vulnerability. A lot of times people will attack vulnerability. And it takes a lot for somebody to sit in front of you and say, I don't know anything, help me. And if we go on the attack too often, which a lot of people in society do because there's something missing in them, or they're trying to get their own personal needs met. And reality is, as a mentor, my job isn't to meet my personal needs, it's to meet Jessica's personal needs. And a good mentor is somebody who gets more excited about somebody else winning than they get excited about their own winning. And so not everybody is capable of being a mentor. They might be a boss, and they might be good at accountability, and they might be good at running their company or their department, but they may not be good about helping somebody get their own needs met. My attitude is everybody's just running around trying to get their own personal needs met. And my job is to figure out what they are and how do I help them.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I mean, Gina is phenomenal at that. And as I mentioned before, she paints that big picture so you see the full vision. And I will walk off all ends of the earth for her to make that happen because she's painted such a clear picture for me. She's invested so much time in me that, even through the hard days, like I'm here for the long haul. I'm here for the long run. I'm not going to give up. But she's done such a good job of painting that picture that, I mean, there's not a whole lot I wouldn't do. So when she says jump, it's how high. So,
yeah.
But we've created that relationship, and she's shown me the vision. So it's about believing and trusting the process too.
Right, and it didn't happen overnight, I would imagine. Right, it took time for those things to develop,
Sure.
And there was maybe some of that initial there just because of the research that you did, Jessica.
Yeah.
But obviously over time that solidified that, right? You saw evidence, and you're saying, "Hey, I've seen the evidence that this has worked before."
Mm-hmm.
She knows what she's talking about.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's just probably goes back to my sports background. I mean, I hate to lose, absolutely hate to lose, but you got to show up every single day. I mean, even the days you don't feel like practicing, the 2 days you don't feel like doing it, especially with basketball, we're the only ones there on Christmas break in college. I mean, yeah, those days get hard, but transfers over to the business life. I mean, there's going to be hard days, but you can't give up. And so many people are quick to jump jobs. Oh, grass is greener on the other side. Well, that's not the case most of the time, as we all know, but it's just about trusting the process and showing up every single day and putting in that time.
Right. What besides obviously there's core things, Gina, this is going to be for you a question. You look at the things that, that would make you desire to mentor somebody. What are those things? What are the main attributes that you think besides, number one, being teachable, right? Are there other things you look for?
Well, and over the years, I've been asked to do a lot of mentoring of individuals. And I really don't take on anybody anymore if they don't work for me, because there's not as much in it for me. I mean, I can go do a lot of different things. I have a lot of choices in my life, and I make them very carefully these days. But the first thing is, what do they want to do in their life? What big thing do they want to try to accomplish?
Right.
And if they don't have a big thing they want to do, then they're not going to get my attention. And
right.
So what is it about that? And then it's about, do I like them? I mean, it's like, do I want to spend time with them? Do I want to spend my very precious time with this person?
Right.
And it's like, yeah, well, I mean, and it's not that somebody has to be like a bull, There's just you've got to find something in sync. You know, I talked about my original mentor, and we became really good friends over time because we were both competitive, we were both tenacious, we both saw the world in similar ways at the time. And, you know, it's kind of this sense of iron sharpening iron.
There you go. Yeah.
You know, that's what you're looking for. What kind of a relationship is there where you're in sync, that you make each other better?
Right. Because you're going to get something out of it too.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And that's actually, I think, a healthy point, because there's going to be elements, I would imagine, out of, as you've worked with Jessica and as you continue to work with Jessica, that you're like, you know, let me think about that. Because that answer is just not coming right away, but you're like, you know what, I'm gonna dig back into the well.
Yeah. Well, and Jessica forces me to be better. She forces me to think through. If she's coming in and says, hey, Gina, I'm trying to get in to see so-and-so. And it'll be like, okay, well, why do you want to get in there? And what are we going to do? And it forces me to strategically think through.
Right.
Well, how would I do that? Could I do that? Well, let's see. Maybe I need to pick up the phone and make a few phone calls.
Right.
You know, type of deal. Or I will think about, you know, Jessica and I have sports in common. And it's like, the day that I don't want to go out and do a really hard workout, it's like, well, crap, Jessica's going to make me, so I might as well go do it. You know, or you know, Jessica has a much more restrictive diet than I do. Well, crap, I better eat better because Jessica's eating better. You know, all those sorts of little things that it's like, as proud of her that she wants me to be, I want her to be just as proud of me.
Right.
In all things. And it's really about that, in a way that it's, how do we lift people up? How do we lift other people up?
If somebody's looking for a mentor, and let's just say, you know, they think they've tried everything, what would be your recommendation?
So the first thing I tell people to do, if first they're trying to plot their path in life, is to do a 6-year vision for your life. And it's about one perfect day. And I didn't create this, somebody else gave it to me. One perfect day from the time your toes hit the floor till your head hits the pillow. And 6 years in the future. And I'll tell you why 6 years in a minute. But very detailed, write it out. And it might take you 2 or 3 weeks to get it perfect. And the idea is, if you can create one perfect day, you can create a string of perfect days. So who do you want to be around? What kind of work do you want to do? What kind of people do you want to work with? What kind of partner do you want to have? What kind of home do you want to live in? What kind of, how do you want your health to be? Who do you want your friends to be? When I did that the first time for myself, I realized that I was probably about 75% of the way there. Well, what was going to get me to 100%? Well, then that gave me the things that I needed to work on to drive towards being 100%. That exercise was born, or actually birthed, what NextPage is today.
Right.
And that's the first thing you have to do. Unless you have a very clear vision for your life, just going and get a mentor isn't going to change much. Because when you're with the mentor, you're there for your reasons, and you've got to ask the mentor for help and guidance. Right. And unless you have that vision for your life, you're not going to know what you're supposed to get from them.
Right. You got to have the goals big enough, right?
Yeah.
It goes along with that. Like this is where I see myself. This is where I want to go. Yeah. And these are the noble reasons why I want to go there.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah. How? What did you do? What am I doing wrong? These are the things that I think, you know, at the time when I was working with my mentor, it was about business accountability. And how do I put systems and processes in place within the business that there's accountability around process? And that was what we needed at that point in time. You know, there's other times when I, you know, went to somebody and I said, hey, I'm working on trying to restructure how the financial organization, how the organization runs us from a financial perspective. And I don't understand that. Can you help me understand how you run your company? You know, and that was a very short-term type of relationship.
Right.
So, I mean, it's really about what do you want for your life, and then find the people who will help you achieve it.
Right. So it's just not go grab a random, you know, mentor out of the bag of M&Ms, right?
But I think for the most part, for people, start with your direct supervisor. If you're in a business, start with your direct supervisor. Show some vulnerability, but make sure that you're not wasting their time. Now, if you have a poor leader as your direct supervisor, you may need to go find somebody laterally within the organization to help.
Right.
You know, or climb up the chain. You know, if you're in a small enough company that you can go talk to the owner, ask the owner if you can go to lunch. Ask them about how they got started in the business. What did they love? Where do they see the business going? The conversation will evolve.
Right.
But if you're looking for a mentor, first look for somebody that you like and you respect.
I got a question for Jessica. I mean, how often do you think someone who's getting mentored needs to be, whether that's in the beginning, does it change over time? I mean, how often do you need to go back and get yourself on that mentor's calendar, do you find?
I would say, I mean, yes, certainly at the beginning. I mean, I came right out of college, so I knew nothing. I still don't know that much, but right away I was just trying to learn everything I could, not only about what we did at NextPage, but also the basic, things about business and going to networking stuff. So I would say at the beginning, probably meeting more often makes sense. I'm also fortunate that Gina and I work for her, so she's at the office. I'm a little spoiled. I pop in probably more than some people might be able to. But I mean, yeah, I certainly think at the beginning, meeting more often makes sense. But I think that also is something that you have to decide with your mentor. What does that look like? What makes sense? What is going to get you to your vision, your plan? What Gina said. How are we going to get to that perfect day? Meeting once a week might be way too much for somebody, but somebody just getting started might need that. So I think it's about finding a balance in what works for you and your mentor.
Right on. Well, I guess, and this will go to Gina, I guess. I'd like to get a little more granular. Like, what does a session look like? I mean, I know that might change over time too, depending on what you're doing. But I mean, what can someone who's getting mentored expect when they walk into that?
Well, so typically when I start with somebody, it's like, okay, what do you want to achieve today, John? What do you want our time together to deliver for you?
Yeah, I think one thing is as the mentee, and I don't mean to interrupt, but coming with an agenda is really important. It's not your job to say, hey, here's your book to success. I usually come with questions for Gina. I usually had something laid out on paper on my computer, ready to go. And yes, then from there, she adds her value and it kind of goes, but it's so important that the mentee puts in the work before that and gets the questions down, lays out the agenda, because it's not her job to come with the agenda. It's my job.
Well, I think it's such, for self-awareness, I think it's so important for someone that's getting mentored to develop that and say, hey, here's where I'm struggling. Here's the questions I have, and here's the vulnerability that I have in order to ask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So the first thing is, what do you want to achieve? Why do you think I can help you with that?
That's good.
And then it's we talk through it. I make a point of saying things like, I avoid saying, you should do this, John. It tends to be more, when I was faced with that problem, this is how I handled it. It's a subtle deal, because too often mentors and people will, without that distinction, will just tell you everything you should do. But if you're an entrepreneur or you're a very competitive person, you sometimes have to do it yourself, and you have to learn the lessons yourself, and you're there collecting information, and then you're going to make the decision yourself. Because I know every time somebody says you should do this, Gina, I'm like, what do you know? Maybe I shouldn't do it.
Well, I think that language shift, I think it does, just in sales in general, it's really kind of driving in the ownership of that decision, that person, the actions that they're going to take. It really drives home that it is their decision to be getting better and to do the work, to do the homework.
Well, and as a mentor, my job is to tell you the stories, or to share the stories that might help you solve your problems, or drive or learn what you need to learn at that point in time. So you don't have to learn all the things I've learned the hard way that I learned them. Can I help you skip a few steps? Can I help you save a few bucks because you didn't have to learn the crappy ass lesson that I had to learn? That's the hope there.
Yeah.
Then typically, before we leave, I give a whole lot of homework. And I tell you, don't come back unless you've done the homework. And then we'll schedule the next session. And it's amazing. And before the next session, if I'm doing mentoring somebody that's not working with me or for me, I will, say, hey, just checking. Are we still meeting tomorrow? Do you have your homework done? Oh, let's reschedule. I'll let them reschedule one time, but then I'm done. I don't have time. If they're not willing to put in the work, move on.
Yeah.
It's just life. My life is too short. It's like, it's like,
shows the accountability that needs to be there.
Yeah.
Frankly, because that does turn into like a disrespect of time, right? It's you're trying to accomplish something. You have other people that you need to also make sure you're taking care of as a business owner.
Yep.
There has to be that respect of time. So,
Yep.
Well, gals, thank you so much. I appreciate you both jumping on. Gina, I appreciate you greatly. You and I have known each other for many, many years.
Long time.
And so I appreciate you jumping on, and you definitely are a woman that's full of wisdom.
Oh, thank you.
There's a book for you.
Oh. No, I don't want to write a book. I might write a card deck. I could write a card deck.
There you go. There you go. There's a printer I know that might be able to help you print that.
That's okay. You know anybody?
All right. Well, hey,
awesome.
Thank you both for jumping on, and this is valuable, I think, for anybody at whatever stage they're in. And so hopefully, if this is information that's been valuable to you, let us know in the comments, share, and we're going to put in the comments where we'll put connected with this in the description how to get a hold of Gina and how to get a hold of Jessica at NextPage. So NextPage is definitely a company that you need to be having on your radar. If you're not working with them already, you need to work with them. And again, thank you so much, guys, for jumping on. Any last minute, points you'd love to share? Insight. I put you on the spot there. I apologize. Take full responsibility for that.
So the biggest thing is people want to be helpful. I have always been able to reach out to anybody, whether I knew them or not. And if I was genuine and needed help, there's a good chance I would get to them and they would be able to help me. And I'm talking about people that run publicly traded companies. If you can get to them, not to sell them, but you want some help and information. They're very helpful.
Right. And I know you're exactly like that.
Yeah.
Because I've sent you texts at a late night and I'm like, Gina, I got a question, and you respond. Yep. And it's not because I'm like, and so I definitely, I always value that from you. So
yeah. I know you got to ask Jessica though. You got to ask Jessica.
Yeah. Last minute words of wisdom.
For my generation, I know a lot of times we try to hide behind the computer screen and the phone and all the technology. And it's like, you got to let that go sometimes. And you got to go chase what you want. And fear's not an option. The worst somebody can say is no. But like Gina said, so many people are willing to help. There's so many free resources out there. You just got to put in a little work, quit hiding behind your computer screen, and not be afraid to make a call or go walk in somewhere and go after what you want.
Right. And I like that you use the word fear, right? Because fear I've heard defined as the false expectations appearing real. And that's frankly what they are.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we put these walls up in our mind that are never even there. So
Yep.
very, very true. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you those that have jumped in on the live here. We appreciate you jumping in. Hopefully you've gotten something from this as well. We know you definitely, if you've taken notes, you're definitely gonna get some words of wisdom out of this for you, and it'll help you. Until the next episode, be great because nothing else pays.
Exactly.
Awesome.